VT Engage, we're the Center for Leadership and Service Learning. And so I want to give a little plug for VT Engage as you all are here on the screen. I use she, her pronouns, and I serve as director of our department. I've been at Virginia Tech for quite some time. I did my grad work here, and then I never left Virginia Tech. So have worked in student conduct. I've worked in the Dean of Students office. I've taught leadership courses in the leadership and social change Res College. And then I got this awesome opportunity to do leadership and talk about leadership 100% of the time, and took on that role. And then leadership education and VT Engage merged to become one department. And I feel like this is my calling to be in this position because, as most of you know, UPROSM, that I may serve, is our motto. And so we like to think about how are we helping students understand the ways they lead and serve in community, because you do that every day now as a student, and you're going to do that in whatever profession you head into and whatever town that you're going to live in. And so we want to give you those experiences to have those conversations. All right, so our why, I want to share our why and what we do, and then I'm going to get a little into like what we actually do, and then we'll dive in, okay? So our vision is to equip civic leaders to create a more just world. We want students to understand how their lived identity, who you are, how you show up in the world, how your families have impacted you, how does that impact the way that you lead and serve, and how are you making change in the world? And so the ways that we do that is through facilitating leadership experiences, service learning experiences, and civic engagement experiences that advances our community priorities. It helps develop you as a student, and it also embodies a UPROSM that I may serve. So we connect to the VT mission through leadership and service, through UPROSM, and then our land grant mission. So I know we have a couple people that are ag students on the call. And so if we think about the ways that extension is in every county in Virginia, and how our land grant mission of research, education, and how are we doing that not only in the Commonwealth, but nationally, but globally as well. And leadership is a huge part of that. We need to know how we lead in different ways. And so being able to have an opportunity to talk about that and think about your own leadership approach and your own leadership identity is really important. So I'm really excited that you're here to have this conversation. So what we do at Virginia, at VT Engage is we have our service learning. So we engage in service projects in the community. So if you're ever interested in seeing what options we have for service, we have short time frame service, where we do like 2-hour to 3-hour experiences locally here in the New River Valley, and oftentimes here at the VT Engage House, which is on Clay Street near the tennis courts right off campus. And then we also do alternative break trips. And so our alternative break trips are open right now for winter break. So if you're interested in going with a group of students and heading out and serving and leading in community, check those out. We also have leadership education opportunities. So workshops such as this. We just had the Hokie Student Leadership Summit this past Saturday. We also host the National Society for Leadership and Success, which is a leadership honorary society, and the I Will Leadership Institute, which I'll get to in a little bit, because I think all of you, if you have not heard about it, you definitely should think about it and join, because it's super fun. And then we also have our civic engagement opportunities. So we work with Hokie's Vote Caucus, which is a student organization on campus, to help students understand how to vote, like how do you get registered to vote? And then also thinking about your own civic identity. What does that mean for you when you do vote? What does it mean to give back to your community now as a student? And then last but not least is our food access initiative. So we host the campus kitchen program, which diverts food from the dining halls to take to community partners in the New River Valley. And then we also support the operation of the Market of Virginia Tech, which provides produce to students in need on campus. And we also help with the big event as well. And so that's a big day of service for our community in the spring. And I hope that you participate, because it's a great event. All right, so for today, our agenda is we're going to have a reflection on leadership. We're going to talk about Clifton strengths. You're going to come up with your own leadership definition. Use first draft. We're going to talk about some student leadership competencies, and then we're going to wrap up. Okay. So we have a lot to cover in the next, let's see, next 50-ish minutes or so. So we're going to dive right in. Any questions so far? Are we good? Okay. Awesome. Very cool. Okay. So what I want you to do right now is I want you to take a moment and either on your computer or on a piece of paper, I want you to think of a leader that you admire. It can be someone famous. It can be someone that you was a leader in your high school. It could be someone that's a leader right now on campus, someone that you admire as a leader. I want you to think about that person, and I want you to write down the qualities that they had. Why did you admire this leader? So take a moment to do that. Okay. Now I want you to think about a leader that you do not admire. You do not like this leader, but they're a leader in our community or in the world. Or there's someone from high school that led that you're like, oh, I did not like how they led. I did not like them as a leader. Write down the qualities that they had. Okay. Give me a thumbs up if you're done with those two parts. You good? Okay. All right. So now what we're going to do is I'm going to share my screen. Okay. So what I want you to do is I want you to shout out the qualities that you wrote down that you admire of your leader. And I'm going to write it down so we can all see it.
Good listener.
Good listener. Okay.
Approachable, or like easy to talk to.
Approachable, easy to talk to. Okay.
Willing to help.
Willing to help.
Knowing how to allocate the resources efficiently.
Great. Resources. Ooh, efficiently. Don't make fun of my spelling. Okay. Ooh, I got it. Okay. All right.
Inclusive.
Inclusive. Love it.
I put teaches in a friendly manner.
Teaches in a friendly manner. Okay. Perfect.
A good teacher.
A good teacher. Okay.
Values honesty and integrity.
Can you say that one more time? Values.
Honesty and integrity.
Ooh, love that. Honesty and integrity. Very good. Oops. Any others you want to throw out there?
I had allows for individual exploration or like growth on the team.
Allows for individual exploration on the team?
Yeah.
Okay, perfect. All right.
Doesn't do micromanagement.
Doesn't do micromanagement. All right. Oops. I love it. Okay. Any others? Okay.
Also is like good at like promoting your development. Like it's not just about like development for the program or the organization, like personal development. I guess it does kind of go into allow individual exploration.
Inspiration, is that what you said? Inspiration for the organization or for the group?
No, I actually meant like it's not just like for the organization, they also allow you to explore like your career path, I guess, or your
Gotcha. Okay. Explore your own career path. Gotcha. You cut out there for a second. So I was trying to pick up the pieces. Sorry, your own career path. Okay, two. All right, perfect. Okay, so now what are the qualities of leaders that we do not admire?
selfish, micromanaging,
Not open to feedback.
bossy,
Ignorant.
Uninterested.
Ignorant, and what was the other one?
Uninterested.
Uninterested, okay.
Unapologetic.
Apologize.
Arrogant.
Unwilling to help others.
Inconsistent with their beliefs.
What was that, Madeline?
Inconsistent with their beliefs and values.
Inconsistent?
Yes.
Okay, awesome. So very good list. So you all can see that list, right? Okay. So for qualities that we admire someone who's a good listener, who's approachable, easy to talk to, someone who's willing to help, someone who knows how to allocate the resources that they have been given efficiently. They're inclusive. They teach in a friendly manner. They are a good teacher. They value honesty and integrity. They allow individual exploration on the team and exploration of their career, and they don't micromanage. All right, and the qualities that we do not admire in a leader: someone who's selfish, someone who is a micromanager, someone who's not open to feedback, someone who's bossy or arrogant, someone who's uninterested, unapologetic, someone who's ignorant, someone who's unwilling to help others, and someone who's inconsistent. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen for a second with that list. Did you all think of someone in particular when you were thinking about someone that you admired? Do y'all have someone in mind you're like thinking about? Did y'all have someone in mind when you were thinking about someone that you did not admire? Okay. So as leaders, I have a question for you all. Do you believe you're a leader? Every single one of your hands should be going up. You are all leaders. You all lead in the ways that you engage with your friend groups, in the ways that you engage in your classrooms, in the ways that you engage in your families. We are all leading every day, because when we're leaders, we're leading through our values, we're leading through the ways that we show up in the world, by making decisions. We're making decisions every day, and there's always somebody watching, even though we don't think there is. And you're consistently doing that. So you all are leaders, whether you think you are or not. Okay. And at VT Engaged, exactly, Julia, look at all these leaders. Look at all these amazing leaders on this screen. I love it. We are leading every day, and we're making decisions that impacts the people around us. It impacts our followers. It impacts the organizations that we're a part of in positive and in negative ways. And the reason why I had you do this activity is you all thought of somebody. You thought of someone that you admire. You probably thought of several people that you admire, and you all could think about someone that you don't admire. But sometimes when we have a bad day, sometimes we can lead or engage in the behaviors that are listed as the qualities that we don't admire, right? Sometimes we can be uninterested. Sometimes we can be unapologetic. Sometimes we can be inconsistent. But what makes you a good leader is with the reflection that you do on yourself every time that you lead, every time that you engage. And that's what makes you a unique leader and a great leader, is when you spend the time thinking about how do you, so for example, like after today, this is a presentation, but I'm going to reflect on what went well with this presentation, what didn't go well with this presentation, what will I do differently next? And that's a habit that I do with every single situation that I'm in as an individual, as a leader. And leadership is about reflection, and it's about constantly making yourself better. Leadership is a journey. There's no like, oh, I got to the end of the leadership journey, I'm all done, I'm all set. That is not what happens. Life continues to happen. You continue to learn, you continue to grow, you continue to be engaging in new positions and new opportunities. And those new opportunities afford you new ways to lead and new ways to think about how you lead. So I just think it's really important that you're thinking about, how do you lead? How do you reflect? What are the qualities that you listed that you want to emulate in your own experience? And what are the qualities that you don't want to emulate in your experience as well? And keeping that in your mind. Okay. Awesome. Thank you so much for participating in that little activity. We're going to get back to the PowerPoint. Okay. So we're going to start on strengths. And how many of you are familiar with strengths? We got some folks, like, how many of you like taken strengths? Seen it? Okay. So I'm gonna tell you a little bit about strengths. I'm gonna tell you my strengths experience, and then share a little bit about strengths, and then we're gonna talk a little bit about it. So when I took strengths for the first time, I cheated and I read all 34 themes before I took the assessment. And I was like, I don't care. This little test isn't going to tell me what my strengths are. They're not going to tell me how I lead. They're not going to tell me the ways that I engage in the world. And I don't care what my top 5 strengths are as long as I'm not a woo. Woo is winning others over. Woo is my number 1. And then it's positivity. And then it's communication, adaptability, and individualization are like in my top 5. And I did this with a group of coworkers, and they laughed when my strengths came out. And they're like, oh my gosh, woo is what you do. You love to engage with people. Like strangers are just friends I haven't met yet. I mean, I literally say that. I love weddings. I love connecting with people. I love connecting with other people that have similarities, and being like, you two should get to know each other because you really like horses and you really like horses and you should spend some time together. And it was this aha moment for me that the way that I show up in the world is not how other people show up in the world. And I could leverage my strengths to do my work even better and be more engaged in what I do in every day. And have fun doing it. And so when I took this assessment, I worked in student conduct. So I was meeting students to talk about their behavior, about what they were doing that didn't meet our standards of our community standards here at Virginia Tech. And I didn't understand why they didn't want to come talk to me. I'm a really nice person. I like to talk. I love to reflect. I didn't understand why they didn't want to talk to me. I mean, I did. They didn't want to talk about something that was a low point in their career at Virginia Tech. And I totally got that. But what my strengths helped me do is it made me realize, okay, I have positivity, I have woo, I can connect with someone really quick. So I would connect with that student really quick in some way, like we'd find a connection. And then we would communicate about what had happened. So I was using my communication skill. My adaptability, we would, if we had a pivot and like focus on some other things the student might maybe having some issues with, like maybe they needed some like counseling resources or needed some time management resources, I could do that. And it helped me be more engaged in my work, and it made my work more fun. And so I have bought into strengths hook, line, and sinker, and I am so excited to talk to you all about it. And the reasons why strengths help you be a better leader. We're going to talk a little bit about that too. So just some quick information. So strengths, people who focus on their strengths are 3 times more likely to live a happy life, 6 times more successful, almost 9% more profitable, 12.5 more times productive, 6 times more engaged, and 15% less likely to quit their jobs. Is this a person that you want to be? Like, I'm going to put my hands up. Like, that's what I want, right? Like, I want all those things when I think about my strengths. So these strengths didn't just come out of like thin air. So that was something else. I was a biology and Spanish major, double major in college. And so I really believe in research and like having data to back something up. And so that was one of the other things I was like, well, how do they figure this out? Like, how do they know this is me? Like, how do they figure that out? So Don Clifton, he's the grandfather of strengths. He was a professor and turned CEO. He started working with strengths, and he was watching CEOs of companies and noticing that they always spent time in the areas of their strengths. And then they would delegate to somebody to tackle the parts that like they didn't have as many, like I wasn't as strong in. And then they knew how to use their strengths to overcome obstacles and figure out how to leverage those strengths. And so they're like, there's got to be some sort of magic when he interviewed all these CEOs to like figure this out. And what they came to the conclusion of is that's back here, that folks have like specific kind of like things that you're passionate about that you reach for without even knowing it. So for example, when you took that assessment, you answered those questions, you're answering the questions because that's something that you're really good at, like without even practicing it. Like you're like, for example, for me, connecting with someone on an elevator, no problem. I have no problem saying hello to someone, getting their life story before we hit the ground level. Like that is something that I could do it. I do it like that. And that's a strength. And so how you make them your strengths, your Clifton strengths, is by taking time and investing time into your strengths, into that talent to make it that strength. So in our society, we tend to be deficit-based. So we tend to be like, okay, all right, I'm working with some folks in my office and maybe they don't have good time management skills. Okay. Now, yes, I need to help them with that, but I'm zeroing in maybe on their, like what their mistakes are versus saying, okay, they don't necessarily have great time management skills. We can figure that out, but they are so creative with the ways that they advertise our events. So how do I cultivate that? Like, how do I cultivate them continuing to make information about our events so great? So it's again like that we focus on the students' lowest grade. So if you brought home a report card and you had an A in math, a B in English, and a C in history, what would your parents focus on? Probably the C, right? They would focus on that C, right? That's what parents do. We focus on the lowest grade. Now we do definitely want to get that grade up, but what if they had focused on your A in math and said, oh my gosh, do you like math? Do you want to go to math camp? Are there extra math classes that you want to do? And so we're looking at how we're building strength to promote that success. So strengths also help us impact the way that we process our information, how we relate and experience others, how we view time and structure, how we accommodate change, and how we communicate. So let me share what that means. So I have adaptability in my top 5, okay? I was doing a strengths presentation with a colleague who has consistency, okay? So consistency is someone who like, this is the process, this is how I'm gonna do it, this is what I'm going to do. Okay. And I have adaptability. So I'm like, woo, like, let's go. And so we were doing an 8 a.m. presentation in a classroom for strengths. I was dropping my kids off at daycare and I was like, I'm going to come in, like running in at 7:50. Like as soon as like I drop those kids off, I'm going to be there. They were already there. And our technology was not working. So the way we viewed time and structure was very different. They had been there by like 7:30. I was there at 7:55, class started at 8. And I realized that my strengths were impacting this individual because it was the first time they were doing a presentation, and understanding how, as a leader, how your strengths impact other folks. So I used my adaptability and we were able to we didn't have to use the PowerPoint. We had paper copies. So we just changed what we did. And she was still able to do her part of the presentation. So she was able to keep with that consistency and what she had trained for, but understanding how my strengths impact all these areas, but also how they impact the people I lead is really important. Okay. So we're going to do, it's going to be a worksheet time. Okay. I'm going to stop sharing my screen. In your email, you should have received an email from me. And in that are 2 worksheets. There's one that's the signature themes worksheet, which is where you would list your top 5 themes, and then how you use those themes. So that one, for the sake of time, you can look at that later. So you can reflect on that. So when you look at your top 5 themes, and then how do you use those in your internship, in your organization, in your classroom, you can utilize that. Let me show you. I'll share it really quick so you guys can see the page. Okay. So it's this one right here. Your role and your signature themes. So for example, like woo and positivity, how do I use that? I use that to connect with students, continue to keep the team moving forward when things maybe aren't working as well. And then the other worksheet, in there is a Clifton Strengths Finder enlarged form, and that's just like big words of the different themes. So there you go. That's what that looks like. So if you have done your strengths, you can go through this and you can read what your themes are. So for example, I've been talking a lot about woo, and if you're not familiar with woo, it's people exceptionally talented in the woo theme love the challenge of meeting new people and winning them over. They derive satisfaction from breaking the ice and making a connection with someone. I love that. All right. So these are really good. This guide is really good to have as you're looking at your strengths, thinking about how you're going to utilize your strengths in your experiences. How can you leverage your strengths to help you lead? And this is a big enlarged version. And then in the email is also one that was a little bit smaller. So you can choose which one you want. And then the other document that we're going to look at right now is the 4 domains of leadership. Okay. So what I would like you to do, if you have your if you have your 5 strengths, I want you to go and I want you to look at where your strengths fall in these 4 domains of leadership. All right. So for me, I have woo, I have positivity, I have communication, adaptability, and individualization. So I have 3 strengths in the relationship building side, and then 2 strengths in the influencing. Okay. So take a moment and figure out which domain area you're in. All students, faculty, and staff have access to Clifton Strengths. So you're able to take Clifton Strengths and get your assessment. And in this website, there's insight reports that are about your specific 5 strengths together. And there is action plans. So I highly recommend if you want to dive more into the Clifton Strengths than just what we're going to cover today, because we're going to cover a little bit about your leadership domain area, and then we're going to talk about student leadership competencies to help you advance in your internship or whatever leadership experience that you're in. So, okay, we're gonna keep moving forward if that's good with everybody. So what I'm gonna ask is, okay. So there are 4 domains of leadership. All right. So the ways that your strengths play a role in the ways that they play a role in the ways that you lead. So oftentimes people think that leaders need to be, extroverted and be able to communicate really well and be able to command a room, and yes, those are some leadership skills that are helpful, but there's also other leadership skills that are just as helpful that help people lead. And what this 4 domains of strengths leadership help you with is it helps you understand the ways that you lead and how that impacts others. And so we're going to walk through the 4 domains of strengths leadership and talk about how they lead and how they impact others. So we're first going to start with executing. So who are my executing folks? Just raise your hand in the chat room or in the on your bubbles. Do we have any executors? Oh, yeah, we got 1, 2, 3. All right, so Shannon, Diana, and okay. All right, so these folks are focusing on productivity, efficiency, solutions, and timelines. Okay. They will take an idea and turn it into reality, and they pay attention to practical implications. So I have a question for my executing folks. Do you make a to-do list? Do you have a to-do list? Right? Okay. Do you get great satisfaction of like crossing off your to-do list? Oh, for sure. Right. Do you also ever make a to-do list, but then it wasn't on your to-do list? Do you still add it to your to-do list so you can cross it off? Yep, absolutely. So people who are in the executing is our folks that have a ranger, achiever, belief, consistency, deliberative, discipline, focus, responsibility, and restorative. These are the people that are going to say, all right, group, all right, this is the group I'm leading. Here's the task at hand that we need to complete. These are the steps that we need to do to make this happen. All right. And they're gonna be following those plans. All right. So that is a great person to lead. All right. How sometimes that leadership can impact others, we'll talk about in a minute when we get to our other domain areas. Okay, so who are my relationship builders? All right, Cody's a relationship builder. Who else? Anybody else? I'm a relationship builder. All right, Madison, or was that Madeline that popped up? Couldn't tell. All right, so relationship builders. These are the folks that hold the team together. They're able to take a group of individuals and make them a team. Okay, they create that community and they create productivity through powerful collaborations. Relationship builders, because I am one, they are going to lead with, in order for them to be able to engage in an experience, they're going to need to get to know a little bit about who you are and want to know what's happening. So my relationship builders on the call. When you start a group project, do you get to know the person? Do you ask how their weekend was? If you're in a group project, okay. Do you happen to, what else do you happen to do that in relationship building? Can you get off task easily if you're talking about like your favorite Netflix show in a group project, right? Okay. All right. This can drive like our executing folks and our strategic building folks nuts because they're like work first, then conversation. But relationship builders, in order to do the work, they need to build that relationship first. So as leaders, it's really important if you're a relationship builder, as I am, I need to understand my group that I am leading and how they show up, because I could really lose somebody on my team if they're executing. And we've spent 30 minutes of a 60-minute meeting to talk about Netflix, which I can get off on a tangent. You know, I'm like, okay, what's happening? You know, that's, to me, that's building community. So you need to think about how you show up in spaces to help lead your team. Okay. All right. Next one is strategic thinking. Who are my strategic thinkers? All right, Jordan. All right. All right, Madison. All right. Very good. Megan. Okay. Wonderful. So these folks, they keep us focused. They also have like plan A, plan B, plan C, plan triple D. I mean, seriously, like if one plan doesn't work, they're like, don't worry about it. I got another plan in the back pocket. So what they're doing is they're absorbing what's happening in the group for whatever we're trying to move forward. And they're analyzing the information to make a plan, and they're focused on the big picture and the end goal. Whereas sometimes our executors can get focused on like a task and say, like, we got to get this task done before we can move on. Our strategic thinkers are like, yes, we need to get that task done. But if we don't get it done today, or we don't get that done for the next week, it's still not going to impact the big picture because we're moving these other things forward. Okay. Strategic thinkers can sometimes spend a lot of time in the ideation, which means like idea phase, a lot of learning. So like taking in information to learn. Input is taking in information, learning something. And that can sometimes be a struggle for our executors because they're like, all right, we got our plan, let's go, let's execute, let's make this happen. And so it's important that you understand how you're impacting the other leadership domains. And then last but not least is influencing. So do I have any influencers in the house? So influencers, all right, Julia. All right, so influencers are the folks that are gonna reach your audience. And what is wonderful about influencers is that they're able to take an idea from your team and they're able to communicate it out to people inside the organization and outside of the organization. So you need to make sure that your influencers understand what you're trying to do. If they don't understand it, they're not gonna be able to communicate it, and whatever you're trying to succeed, whatever you're trying to make happen, isn't gonna happen. Because they're gonna be like, I don't get it. I don't know what we're doing. Because they can influence and they can help people influence people to make that thing happen. So your activators, your command, your communication, So what sometimes can happen is our influencers can sometimes get frustrated with our strategic thinkers because they're spending so much time kind of like ideating and thinking and being like, what about this way? Or what about this way? That they're like, okay, you just need to tell me what we're doing and we need to move forward with that so that I can start communicating that out so we can reach the audience that we need to reach. Okay. Any questions about those? Oh, so what if you're both an executor and strategic thinker? Great question. So you have 5 strengths. And so you might say maybe you have like 2 in one and 3 in the other. Read both definitions and then decide which one sounds more like you. Okay. And then that's the one that you would go with. All right. Does that make sense? Okay. Awesome. I'm gonna stop share for a second. Okay. So I want to check in and see if there's any questions about leadership domain areas. So Julia wrote, I have strengths in influencing, relationship building, and strategic thinking. Sometimes, like Megan says, you have to reflect on how you're showing up in spaces and how you want to show up. Absolutely, absolutely. And your strengths are what you use your strengths without you even really knowing it. It's what you're really good at without even trying. And so we also use our strengths in times of stress as well. And so I'm going to share a little bit about that. So are there any other questions about that? Okay. So when we use our strengths in teams and when we lead in teams, we maximize our success of being really good leaders and getting the job done and getting the project done when we are knowledgeable and appreciative of our own strengths. So when we understand how we show up in spaces, what our strengths mean, when we're knowledgeable and appreciative of other strengths, so we understand the strengths of our teammates, which you can make a team strengths grid on the Experience VT website, and I'll tell you what that means in a second. And then we find ways to contribute and lead from our strengths as often as possible. And we help people perform from their balconies rather than their basements. So what does that mean? Balconies rather than their basements. So strengths are based in positive psychology, but sometimes because they're things that we reach to, like without even really knowing it, they can actually hinder us and hinder the ways that we're doing our work. Okay. So when they help us, they're positive and productive application that allows us for our greatest success. When they hinder us, there's a negative application that can hold us back. Okay. So let me give you an example. When I worked in the Dean of Students office, I worked with students who were struggling academically or were struggling like personally. And I had a student who came in, it was the day before graduation, literally the day before graduation. And this person said to me, I haven't gone to class all semester. I have failed all my classes. My parents are driving down I-81 right now because they think I'm graduating tomorrow and I'm not. And it was a really stressful season in the Dean of Students office because we get students who are coming in with their things at the end of the semester. And my strengths, woo and positivity were like, you know what? We're going to figure this out. Don't worry about it. This isn't a big deal. And when I said that, I saw the student's face just go like, just blank and was like, how can you say this isn't a big deal? This is like the biggest thing in my life, like biggest failure that I've ever had. And I realized my woo and my positivity were hindering me because I wasn't thinking about how that was going to impact someone. And so I took a deep breath and I was like, you're right. I'm like, this is a really big deal, but you know what? It's something we can fix and we can figure out and get you back on track. So that student ended up, we called his parents in my office right then, told them what was happening. And they were so concerned, you know, they weren't mad, they were just worried, right? And we were able to get that student graduated the next semester. But understanding how your strengths and how stress can impact your strengths is really important. All right, and so strengths are neutral, okay? So just understanding how you utilize them and making sure that you're understanding, again, that reflection back as a leader. How does my woo show up in spaces? How does my positivity show up in spaces as a leader? How is my communication? Am I communicating too much during a team meeting? Do I need to be quiet and let my strategic thinkers have that space to have some dialogue and conversation? So understanding how it can create synergy or can create friction in a team. Okay, all right. So what I want you to do right now is I want you to take, we'll take less than 3 minutes. We'll take about 2 minutes, okay? I want you to write down your own leadership definition, okay? So we've talked about your strengths. You've talked about qualities that you admire. I want you to write down a 1 to 2 sentence definition for you. What is your leadership definition? And this is your first draft, so it does not have to be pretty. This is your first draft of your leadership definition. So take a moment to do that. All right, okay. Would anybody like to share their draft of their leadership definition? All right, please do.
Is it me?
Yes.
Okay, I wrote a leader is an individual that can think or take ideas and make them into a reality. This person is also good at building morale among the team members.
Awesome, that's great. Great, great, great. All right, who else? One more.
I have leadership is an admirable trait of trusting yourself, influencing others, and striving towards a better common goal and or lifting each other up to become a better person.
Love it. That's awesome. All right. Okay, so how did it feel to write a leadership definition? What did that feel like for y'all? Did it feel weird? Was it like a good exercise? So here's the reason why I wanted you to do it, okay? I want you to take that leadership definition. I want you to put it somewhere where you see it every day, okay? Whether it's by your computer, whether it's when you're starting your internship or you're starting a leadership position, you're looking at that leadership definition every day, because that leadership definition is going to help you refine your leadership. It's going to help you redefine what your leadership is, because you're going to read it and then you're going to be like, do I mean this or do I mean that? Or did I really do that today? Did I really say all those things that I think that's about leadership? Okay. So definitely keep that. Both of those were great. So definitely keep that around. Okay. All right. So again, just talking about reflection. And so the importance of reflection. So we did talk about this a little bit already, but you know, as you think about a time that you have led a group of people, or in your internship experience, when you've taken on a project, do you reflect after it? So it's more of like, you know, just for you to think about, like, how am I reflecting? How am I understanding how I lead? What did I do well? What did I not do well? What will I do differently next time? Those are 3 questions that you can ask yourself in every single situation. What did you do well? What did you not do well? And what will you do differently next time? Okay. All right, so the last thing we're going to talk about in our last 5 minutes is the student leadership competencies. So you should have received in that email was also a document of student leadership competencies. And these competencies, stop my screen. Okay. All right. This is what the document looks like. So there are several competencies listed on here. And so at Virginia Tech in BT Engage, we believe that everybody is a leader. We all bring different things to the table in the ways that we lead and serve in our community. And we all have different passion areas, right? So I have a certain passion area and how I want to lead, and someone else is going to have a different way that they want to lead. So in Corey C. Miller and her colleagues, they reviewed a bunch of different syllabi from across different institutions and looked at the learning outcomes of courses. And they came up with these student leadership competencies. And they actually have a book that looks at the knowledge, value, ability, and behavior of all these competencies. So there are competencies in the following areas: learning and reasoning, personal behavior, interpersonal interaction, communication, strategic planning, civic responsibility, self-awareness and development, and group dynamics. So what your task, if you will, from today's presentation is that I want you to select one of these student leadership competencies from this list that I emailed you. And I want you to think about an action plan of how you are going to move this competency forward for you in your internship experience or in a different experience. Okay. So, for example, if I was going to choose, so for myself, I want to spend some time in, where is it? Strategic planning. Okay, so my department just went through a program review, and I want to work on the competency of plan, laying out a course of action, identifying tasks, setting deadlines to complete an attended objective. What I'm going to do as a leader is I'm going to write down that as my competency. I'm going to give myself a time frame, and then I'm going to talk about how I'm going to develop that competency as a leader to impact my team. So for that planning, I have until the end of the semester to come up with our plan, our timeline of how we're going to execute the recommendations from our program review. I'm going to work with my team, and we're going to have a meeting once a week to see what our progress is. And I'm going to delegate to some folks on my team to complete these action items for the program review. So there's actually a couple different student leadership competencies in there that I'm going to use, but I'm going to focus on plan. Okay. So as people are looking at this list, do you mind sharing what might be a competency that you're interested in completing or using for your internship, advancing for your internship or for an experience that you're a part of? All right, so Shannon is gonna look at reflection and application. Awesome, very cool. Is that for your internship?
Yeah, it's for my internship.
Okay, and what's your internship in?
Right now it's data analysis, and I'm trying to just use my previous internship experiences to go to this one.
Okay, very cool, very cool. So what I recommend is when you look at your job description for your internship and the data analysis piece of it, how are you going to use application and reflection to advance those competencies for you in that experience? And then think about where your touch points are for you to come back and reflect on it. So maybe it's a weekly thing, maybe it's a, after every session, whatever that might be. What are you doing to advance that forward? Okay. Anybody else like to share one more? All right, you're probably busy looking at the list because there's a lot on there. Okay. Well, I hope that's the end of this workshop. Think about the time, it is 6:30. But one thing I did want to mention is the I Will Leadership Institute, which is inspiring women in lifelong leadership. It's for women identified undergraduate and graduate students. It's a 7-session institute over the course of the academic year. And if you are interested at all in talking about how does gender impact leadership, what does it mean to be a woman and lead, and have conversation and dialogue with other students at Virginia Tech, please email me. I'm going to put my email in the chat, and we will get you connected so you can join our sessions. It is such a phenomenal experience. We bring in speakers. We have folks that are friends of the institution that network with us, that are working in different organizations and companies across the United States. So if you're interested, please email me and I will share the information with you to have you join our institutes. So thank you all so much for your attention. I appreciate it. In the evening after 5, close to dinner. So thank you.